Hi Sloths, and welcome back to Unpopular Opinions, the show where I piss off the internet. Today we're returning to the wonderful world of Pokemon to talk about the most underrated bug type out there. Get your nets, because it's time to talk about the Ledyba line. Let me paint the picture for you. The year is 2013 and the 3DS is the hottest handheld on the market. Nintendo brought back Kid Icarus, Sonic Colors got a unique 3DS port, and I never got anything from Street Pass because the only so-called friends I had at the time thought FIFA and Call of Duty were the pinnacle of gaming. Nintendo announces the first mainline Pokemon game in 3D, and it comes in the form of X and Y. It introduces cool new things like fairy types and mega evolutions. Fans went wild, children around the world rejoiced, and then the game came out about 6 months later. Now, think back to previous mainline Pokemon games. Kanto? Kinda tough, especially in Gen 1. Gen 2 was pretty easy and made easier in remakes, but had some tough battles, especially with Red at the end. Then we had the Hoenn games, with Emerald making things a bit tougher, and then the Gen 4 games had some notoriously tough battles, with Cyrus, the entire Elite Four, and Cynthia, as well as other trainers and gym leaders giving people trouble. Then we had Black and White, with an all-new and limited roster, some really tough battles, and some people found it way too hard. Although there was a hard mode for Black and White too, it was kinda broken, and if you learned how to exploit it, it was actually easier than the normal mode. Finally, we land on what is considered to be the easiest mainline Pokemon games of all time, X and Y. We're talking Forced XP all, hand-holding, 2-star Pokemon Mega Evolution, and easy opponents. Veterans were not happy at all, including myself. I was a teenager at the time, but I beat Cynthia at 7, so going from that to the absolute piss-easy Kalos League was extremely disappointing. From what I remember, my final team consisted of Delphox, Mega Charizard X, Mega Gardevoir, Mega Lucario, Tentacruel, and finally, Ledian. Now, I already had some great Pokemon that could Mega Evolve, and I do love a good Charizard, so I had to choose that to go along with my Delphox. And the team definitely could have been more balanced, but I don't remember losing a battle in this game. I really don't. Of course, I knew I needed a Surfer for my team, and ended up with the super cute Tentacruel. But things were still too easy. I felt like I needed a challenge, a problem child to add to my team to make things more interesting. At the time, I think I actually had myself a Lombre, so I started to swap that Lombre for Pokemon I thought would be objectively weaker that I had previously caught. I tried things like Zigzagoon, Fletchling, Caterpie, and then I landed on Ledyba. I remember no one really liking Ledyba. At first things were a bit tricky with switch training and a lack of interesting moves, but I got there in the end. Ledyba finally evolved into Ledian, and my entire world was turned upside down. Suddenly, this little bug was actually fighting like an Ursaring. Of course, Ledian still lagged behind a bit during the playthrough, because bugs are notoriously squishy, especially when a lot of trainers use fire and flying types in this game. When I reached the end, I found myself a fan of Ledian. To speed things along a bit, we're going to be talking about Ledyba and Ledian in the same sections for this episode. First of all, let's take a look at their base stats. Ledyba is sporting a base stat total of 265, which is pretty weak in a general sense, but I'll sing its praises for this a bit later on. 40 HP, a measly 20 attack, 30 defense, 40 special attack, 80 special defense, and a sluggish 55 speed. This thing isn't going to do much unless the stars align, clearly. But when evolving into Ledian, we're greeted with a mediocre base stat total of 390. For a fully evolved Pokemon, that's not great. Its HP doesn't go up by much, only to 55, along with its special attack, and its attack is laughable at 35. Its defense remains kinda squishy at 50, and its speed goes up to an almost respectable 85. Its only good stat here is special defense at 110. Please keep in mind though that this is purely base stat totals and not their maximum stat total. Originally I was going to talk about its moves that it can learn in X and Y, but I wouldn't be doing this Pokemon justice if I didn't explore its entire modern or updated moveset. First we'll talk about Ledyba, who's not been in a game since Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl for some reason. Ledyba starts off horribly outmatched with just Tackle at level 1, Supersonic at level 5 and Swift at level 8. Up until level 18 when it evolves, it learns Comet Punch, Light Screen, Reflect, Safeguard and Mach Punch. This is quite a strange and disappointing moveset considering that Ledyba has a very bad attack stat, and it doesn't even get a single bug type move until level 22, which is Struggle Bug, and it doesn't learn a flying type move until level 19, which is Roost. Both are learned slightly later by Ledian at level 20 for Roost, and level 24 for Struggle Bug. Also, Roost can be learned through TM. Ledyba is also just too slow and squishy to pull off Reflect and Light Screen, so what's really the point here? Moving on to Ledian, it doesn't learn a whole lot leveling up that sounds all that useful. Baton Pass is useful for some, but not if you're focusing on single player. Then we've got Agility, which can be useful, but it's so squishy that it kind of won't matter. Bug Buzz is probably the best attacking move it gets leveling up, along with Air Slash, since they're both pretty strong special moves that have Stab for Ledian. But its final level up move is Double Edge, which I don't understand the point of when Ledian has such a low attack stat. Did someone say generic design that just looks like the thing it's based on? Apparently so. Although cute and charming, Ledyba just looks like a big stocky ladybird, or ladybug as I like to call them, and Ledian just looks like a darker slimline and tougher version that can zip around in the sky. They do have very simplistic designs either way. The patterns are pretty typical and they basically have 3 colours to them each, and although they clearly look like an evolution, Ledian doesn't look too much different from Ledyba. They're not really inspired designs that look super cool, cute, or anything else. They're just ladybugs. Earlier I complained heavily about the stats of both Ledyba and Ledian, but have I mentioned Ledyba's stats are actually pretty decent compared to some middle evolution bug types? How about the 390 base stat total for Ledian being only slightly below average? Okay, I know it doesn't sound great, but if you're looking for a special wall, Ledian is pretty great. Like I mentioned earlier, these are only the base stats, which can be altered with leveling up, EV training and IV training, as well as nature's abilities and moves. Speaking of abilities making your ladybug stronger, you want to know what Ledyba and Ledian have? Swarm. Considering how squishy these Pokemon can be, it stands to reason that you'll be activating Swarm a lot, which increases bug type moves by 1.5 times when the HP is at a third or below. Also, if you're worried about HP a lot, then a good strategy I can suggest to you is to get Ledyba or Ledian with Early Bird and teach it Rest and Sleep Talk. With this, you can heal, attack in your sleep, and wake up early in case Sleep Talk isn't something you can realistically use or don't want to waste a move slot on. Ledyba's hidden ability is Rattled, which increases its speed if hit by Bug, Ghost or Dark type moves, which can be helpful if you need to dish out one last move. When it evolves, that hidden ability turns into Iron Fist. I'm honestly not sure why Ledian isn't a fighting type, because it seems to have an affinity for using fighting type moves, which it has no right to use considering its awful attack stat, but it fights on anyway. Iron Fist increases all punching moves by 20%, which is great for when you have moves like Mach Punch, Comet Punch, and even Focus Punch if you really want to go down that route. Earlier I purposefully left out Ledyba and Ledian's TMs and Egg moves because they're actually quite good. Through Egg moves, Ledyba can learn Bug Bite, Psybeam, Knockoff and Tailwind. If you're looking to pump your Ledian full of TMs, you've got a myriad of options, such as Giga Drain, Dig, Brick Break, Aerial Ace, Drain Punch, U-Turn and Swords Dance. They can also learn more supportive moves like Flash, Swagger, Substitute, Attract, and Double Team. I don't think I need to explain to you how strangely adept the Ledyba line can be, and I know I keep saying its attack stat is weak, but with a little bit of EV or IV training and a good nature, this tiny bug can actually pack a real punch. And that's exactly what I discovered when I used it in Pokemon Y. If you want something on your team that's going to be a bit more tricky to raise and win with, this is a good challenge. Hell, most bug types are going to be a challenge to have as a serious team member. Have you ever wondered why it's called the 5-star Pokemon in the category? It's because it's actually based on the 7-star Asian Lady Beetle, so its design makes sense. Now, not all Pokemon need to be flashy or eccentric to be well designed, and both Pokemon have a certain degree of charm to them. With how derpy Ledyba's face is and how Ledian gives off this vibe of a plucky young martial arts student, yeah. I feel like Ledian was supposed to be a fighting type, but I think Heracross probably just stole its thunder. I like the Ledyba line, but I want to know what my friends think, so I asked a bunch of them. So first of all, let's have a quick look at what Mango, also known as Cool Carrot, had to say. I asked him simply if he liked Ledyba and Ledian. He said they're pretty good Pokemon. I asked him what he liked about them, and he told me Ladybirds are pretty cool, and they also have a pretty cool design. He also mentions that he used these Pokemon in the first Nuzlocke that he ever did, which I think is fantastic. The next person I want to take a little bit of a testimonial from is actually Jeremy. So I asked Jeremy the simple question, do you like Ledyba and Ledian? And he responds with, I mean, they are cute, because Ladybug, teehee. I guess he is a big fan of ladybugs. And he also calls them ladybugs like I do. I didn't realise that until just now. That's really cool. So next up, we have my friend Nyceto. I asked him if he likes Ledyba and Ledian. He says yeah. So I asked him what he liked about him, and this is the funny thing. He says, I don't know lol. My friend is actually the reason I kinda like them. It's from seeing him use one on his team that I kinda grow to like it. Those are my weird thoughts on why I like Ledian and Ledyba, lol. Kind of interesting. Seeing other people use a Pokemon well, you can also grow to like him. Like, I used to hate Cryogonal, and then I saw someone in a Let's Play using Cryogonal in, I believe, Black and White, and you know what? I was like, wow, this Pokemon can actually be pretty decent. I mean, I still don't really love Cryogonal to this day, but you know what? It's not such a terrible Pokemon as I first thought, and many people thought as well. Next, I asked my friend Pipsqueak, do you like Ledyba and Ledian? He says, I mean, they're okay. I asked them if there was anything specific that they liked or disliked about them, and they kinda just told me what a lot of people over the years have just told me as well. No, they're kinda just unremarkable. Next, we have another unsure kind of fan, and that is my friend the Anxious Potu. Like always, I asked them if they liked Ledyba and Ledian. They was like, sure, don't have much of an opinion about them, but I don't dislike them. So I asked them if there was any particular reason for that, and they responded with, ladybugs look good. That's all I think about when I see them. I mean, that's fair. Every time you look at a Ledyba or a Ledian, you just think, that's a ladybug. And I also just realised she also calls them ladybugs like I do. This is getting fascinating. Like, how many people in the world are so divided on calling them ladybirds and ladybugs? This is kind of interesting now. The next two I want to talk about are people who are very, very big fans of Pokemon. So I asked, first of all, Shadow Dragon. I asked him, Ledyba, Ledian, do you like him? He wasn't a fan of them. Not a big fan, at least. So I asked them if there was any particular reason as to why they don't like them. And this is another big common complaint I hear with the Ledyba line in general, all the time. It's the stats. Lol. Yes, I know they don't have great stats. And it's fine to not like the Pokemon. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. It's fine. It's just, there is more to a Pokemon than bad stats, I guess. And now here we have another little excerpt from Godspeed. So I asked them, Ledyba, Ledian, do you like them? And they responded with, not particularly. Seemed a little uninspired. I can definitely see that. I mean, it literally is just a bug. It's just a ladybug. That's all it is. I can understand that. Okay, so here's the last one. It is, I asked my friend Seren Vale what they think of Ledyba and Ledian, and oh boy, they are the most excited about the Ledyba line I have ever seen anyone. This person is a big fan of them. So they said, Ledian is goated, can literally solo the Sinnoh Elite Four in Gold and Silver. I assume they're talking about the Elite Four battles that you can do against the Sinnoh Elite Four in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Don't quote me on that. I know for a fact that obviously they're not in the original Gold and Silver. That would be crazy. That wouldn't make any sense. But yeah, I've never heard of them, of Ledian soloing them before. But I'm going to take their word for it. I assume that, you know, there is a way to do it. They also said my boy can learn Bullet Punch, Ice Punch, Fire Punch, and Supersonic. And they were like, yeah, that's my little Rocky. So, obviously, Rocky, a reference to Ledian's fighting abilities, and kind of possibly being some sort of reference to Rocky Balboa from the Rocky films. Also, they mentioned that it can learn Ice Punch and Fire Punch. Maybe they could back then, but they cannot as of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Also, Supersonic, not the best of moves, but sure. You can actually pull that off, that's brilliant. But yeah, like I keep saying, Ledyba and Ledian are super underrated. They might not have the greatest stats. They might not have the most inspired or interesting design, but if you play them right, they can be a force to be reckoned with. And I think that's going to do it for this episode. I really hope that after this, you try Ledyba and Ledian. Maybe not in a Nuzlocke, unless you're feeling particularly brave. If you want to play some of the easy games and have a little bit of a challenge, Ledian is kind of a good choice. And even if you don't want to do that, if you want to do it as a proper challenge in like Pokemon Diamond, Pearl and Platinum, or, you know, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, if you really want to use it, go ahead, try it. It might not be fun for everyone, but I think Ledyba and Ledian are great. So with all this being said, please like and subscribe, it's always free, and I'll see you later.